Not every legend is a myth. Some are flesh and blood. Some legends walk among us, but they aren't born. They are built. There's a legend behind every legacy. There's a blueprint behind every legend. This is Arnold, the Austrian Oak, and you're listening to New York Muscle Radio, the blueprint with champion.
Wow, man, that intro, how could I even follow it up? So this is, guys, what's up? This is New York Muscle Radio, episode number 36. It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, along with my co-host, Big P. Kacharin. Today, we're super excited to bring you the blueprint to gaining muscle size. This is New York Muscle Radio's awesome blueprint that we put together for you guys. We got on today John Hansen. He's going to line out his blueprint to what he did to gain his size. I mean, John was a natural bodybuilder who competed at ridiculous weight. He was around 200 on stage. I think he even sent me a clip of him at like 208, and he was ripped and huge, and he looked just like Arnold. So if there's anyone close to Arnold, this is the guy. So we put together this blueprint episode for you guys, and we're super thrilled about it. So I don't know how that intro, man, it gives me chills when I hear it. When you watch that guy pose, it gives you chills.
You know what's funny about Arnold? I mean, everybody who competes and is a bodybuilding or fitness fan, it always comes back to Arnold. And not only was it his physique. I mean, his physique was definitely the thing that got me into competing, but just his ability to motivate you and talk about pumping iron and fitness. There's just nobody, even to this day, that could do it the way he did. When you hear him speak about training and dieting and just his mentality, you always question, like, all right, what the hell am I doing? Like this guy, like, if you think you're motivated, this guy was motivated. If you think you were training hard and you had a passion for lifting, like what you're doing is like amateur compared to what Arnold used to do. It's crazy when that stuff comes on. I mean, me and Anthony had a workout a couple of weeks ago, and it must have been on his iPod or something, and the full podcast where Arnold was talking about his blueprint came on, and Arnold's talking about doing his drop sets, his supersets, his crazy high volume workouts, and just talking about where his mindset was during these workouts. And we were having a pretty tough workout, and then I started listening to Arnold, and I'm like, man, like if he could train with that type of intensity all the time, then like what we're doing right now, like I have no excuse. I have to finish this workout. It's just crazy. Nobody's able to speak about training the way he was.
That's why it's on the iPod, the workout iPod.
It did its job, that's for sure.
Yeah, of course, it's Arnold. And I agree with that 100%. How this episode even came about was one of my in-person clients who comes to me in my new personal training facility in Long Island. If you guys are interested in that, go to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com, click on the coaching tab, and click my picture, and it'll bring you right to my page. But he came in the other day and he's like, I'm looking for mass. If only I had a blueprint to gain as much size as you, I'd be in business. So I was like, right away in my mind, I'm like, boom, this is perfect. Let's get an expert in the field. I immediately thought of John Hansen, and I said, let's put out this blueprint for anyone looking to gain muscle size. I think this episode, I'm excited for it because I know I'm going to learn from it as well.
Yeah, it's always nice to have that structure. If someone hands you this and says, listen, this is the best way, this is the blueprint, this will get you where you want to be. But, the one thing we should follow that up with too, and a lot of people, I'm guilty of this too myself early in my training career, are always searching for that magical blueprint. And there isn't anything magical about any one particular blueprint. This one is probably the most optimal you're going to be able to find in terms of reaching your goals. But that's not to say that this one has something that others don't in terms of creating the success from it. I'm getting a little Skip LaCour on you here, but honestly, this is something that just comes with, years of training. Anthony can attest to this too. You can make any training program or blueprint successful as long as you stick to it and you put in 100% effort. Some of them are going to work better than others. There's no question. We want to give you the information to have the absolute best blueprint out there to gain muscle size and strength, but you can make any program work as long as you put the effort in and the consistency in. If you don't do that with the best, program or blueprint, you're not going to see results. So there's more to it than just the blueprint, but if you have that mindset and that training mentality that you're going to go in and train consistently and you're going to reach your goals and you have the right program, then you're going to see the optimal amount of results. So just keep that in mind too.
Speaking of programs, Arnold's program is the only one that I never really did. like fully. I never really committed to it and did it. And I was always afraid because every time, I'd Google everything and everyone would be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you do Arnold's program, you're gonna overtrain. You're gonna overtrain." Have you ever done it?
Yeah, you know what's something very funny about that if you think about it? The Arnold Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding is probably the most purchased book in the bodybuilding industry ever, but it's probably the one that the least amount of people actually use the workout program in that book. How many people do you know actually followed that workout program?
Exactly.
Everyone looked at it and
I'll
said
link
it's
that
too
book for
much.
everyone so they could pick it up if they don't have one. If you don't have one, it's like a sin. But go to
Yeah,
NewYorkMuscleRadio.com,
everybody should
click on the
have
show
one.
notes, and you'll find the book there. It'll be there, the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding.
But I did actually experiment with about a 2 or 3 week period of doing his beginner's training routine. This is something actually. This is me and my brother used to work out together, like back when I was in high school. So this is going back a little bit, and we did his beginner routine, which honestly wasn't anything too crazy. It was 6 days a week. The split was chest and back on Monday. Tuesday was shoulders and arms. Wednesday was legs, and then you repeat it Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And the exercises were very basic. Your bench press, your incline press, your pullovers, your barbell rows, T-bar rows, and pull-ups, stuff like that. And the only thing I remember about doing his training routine was that his protocol was for pull-ups done twice a week. He didn't do sets and reps. His protocol was, I don't know, do you remember what it was?
What do you mean, set and reps wise?
He didn't give a set and rep protocol for pull-ups. He gave you a little bit of different protocol for it. He gave sets and reps for everything.
It might have just been 12, 12, and 12. Or no. And I follow this actually today. I'm lying. I do know what it is. It was like 50 reps.
Yeah, it was 50 reps, however many sets it
Yeah.
takes you to get to 50 reps.
I actually do that, and that actually really works.
If it's 5 sets of 10 or if it's 50 sets of 1. And when me and my brother started training, it was 50 sets of 1 because that's all we could do. I remember we did this in my grandfather's basement. This is where our gym setup was. And when we did these pull-ups, we were doing it in the back boiler room from one of the bars. And we both couldn't do more than one pull-up at a time. So it probably took us about an hour and a half to get to 50 pull-ups each. So it's just funny. It's bringing up old memories of when I did do Arnold's training routine. But, to this day, people comment on my pull-ups as one of my strong things. So, my roots in pull-ups were not that good, and I did start out doing Arnold's routine. So there's got to be something to it.
Yeah, you know what? Since you never did it and I never did it, I think after nationals, I definitely going to need a little bit of a break from powerlifting. So since we have the mastermind group, why don't we do Arnold's type of routine in the mastermind group? And
that would be really cool because especially too, we preach on here, the importance of high volume training and spacing that out with periods of deloading to avoid overreaching, overtraining. And Arnold's routine is going to be the perfect example to show people that you can overreach for a period of time, back off, and still make progress. Because everyone says, oh, Arnold's routine, too much overtraining, doesn't work.
Yeah, for those of you that don't really know what we're talking about as far as the mastermind group, if you go to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com and click on Mastermind Training, you'll find out more information about it. It's basically going to be a community that we're putting together. It's going to be pretty much an 8-week program, and we're going to have everyone in the community together. You're going to get your routine, diets, and we're all going to be posting in there together. And me and Pete are going to be participating with you guys. So go to NewYorkMuscleRadio.com, click on the Mastermind Training tab, and sign up and come and join us and watch our progress. And we're super excited to watch everyone else's too, because we're going to be posting videos in there, and me and Pete will be training together too. So if we're doing the Arnold program, Pete, we're going to have a lot of videos to do.
Oh, yeah, man. We're going to have, tons and tons of exercises, sets, reps. But that's the way I like to train, honestly. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of that typical bodybuilding style workout. I've always incorporated stuff that I've learned from Arnold's training in mine. I've never followed his 6-day-a-week routine or his double split training or anything like that. But, doing a ton of volume and keeping the reps a little shy of failure is how I've been training a lot lately. So I'm definitely looking forward to actually giving it a shot because I always like to say, I did it and it worked, or I did it and it didn't work. I hate when people say, oh, you can't do that routine. It's not going to work.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like to actually know, okay, I've done it and it worked, or it didn't work. If we do it and we fail to make progress, then okay, at least we know.
Yeah, for those of you that listen to, I believe it's episode number 33 of our podcast where we spoke about our secret nutritional tip. We're going to be using a lot of intra-workout stuff. We should actually come out with our own intra-workout supplement, Pete. What do you think about that? What do you guys think? I want to hear what you guys think. You hit us up on Instagram. I'm at AB Fitness. Pete's at Jacked Fitness, Jakked Fitness, and let us know if you guys would like if we put out our own intra-workout supplement. Because I think if we put out our own, it would be properly blended, and I think people, if we replicate what we do, because man, let me tell you, lately I went back to that doing the intra-workout carbs. Pretty much I timing it dead in the middle of my workouts, and I still feel pumped for my workout today. It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, I told everybody that the hardest part for me to gain weight was just getting in enough carbohydrates. And then when I started putting them in during my workouts, I was amazed that not only was I able to start gaining weight again, but I wasn't drained after all my workouts. And, I've come to notice that my body takes a huge beating when I train hard. And, I mean, everybody's does in general, but because my body burns through carbohydrates so fast that especially during a long high volume workout, it depletes my body so severely that it makes the muscle building process and the weight gain process that much harder. So supplementing with that intra-workout carb source, dextrose or whatever other carb source you're using, for me personally, and I'm sure for a lot of other people whose bodies are similar to mine, was just like, it was almost like magic, to be honest. I mean, I don't want to overhype it. It's just basically carbohydrates. But the fact
No, but
is,
you should overhype it because it's definitely not utilized enough,
right.
and
Mm-hmm.
it definitely makes a big difference. Definitely does. Definitely
Yeah, I
does.
mean, it's basically, everyone overhypes pre and post workout nutrition. Obviously, they know the importance of it. This is just another piece. Like I said, it's the link that combines, pre workout and post workout nutrition. That's intra workout nutrition. You really, if you're that adamant about having proper pre workout nutrition and then your post workout nutrition, you have to have your protein shake within 15 minutes of your workout. And you're gonna neglect intra workout nutrition, then you got to question what it is you're actually doing or trying to accomplish, where your head's at.
Yep. So guys, let's get on with this. This is exciting for those of you that are listening who are looking to gain muscle size. I mean, this is something that I still feel like I want to learn to do, and I want to be there. So, and it's funny because we use a case study, and I named the guy Steve. So our case study guy in there is secretly it's me and Pete. We both of us, we both want to be up to about 220, 230 in the off season, and we want to be like around 210, 200 on stage. We want to do it naturally. So this is kind of the blueprint that we're going to be putting together for ourselves. So if you guys keep that in mind, it doesn't matter what level you're at, how many years you've been training, you could always make changes to your physique. So with that said, let's take a short commercial break, and we'll be back with the blueprint to gaining muscle size.
Do you want to get in the best shape of your life? Discover how you can get best-selling author, muscle and fitness writer, and world-renowned trainer Anthony Bevilacqua to take you by the hand and personally guide you one-on-one to the body you've always wanted. Visit abfitnesstrainer.com for more information. At A Plus Meals, we specialize in healthy yet gourmet meal prep. With over a combined 15 years in the fitness industry and over 30 years in food service, A Plus Meals is a premier choice when searching for your next healthy meal. Being started by two nutritionists, these meals are designed to help you reach any goal on your fitness journey. We now offer a wide variety of meals on our menu, as well as snacks and desserts. Order now by visiting our website, aplusmeals.com.
All right, guys, we're back. New York Muscle Radio, episode number 36. It's your host, Anthony Bevilacqua, and my co-host today couldn't be here, so my new co-host today is actually going to be John Hansen. What's up, John? How are you?
What's up, Anthony? How you doing? Good to be on your show again, man.
Yeah, so I have a bigger co-host today. Yeah, so Pete couldn't make it, so John's filling in tonight for him. And today's episode is going to be really cool. Basically, what we're doing for you guys is we're going to be putting together a blueprint to gaining muscle size. I mean, everyone wants to get bigger and bigger, but we're going to hear from the man himself, John Hansen, who's a lifetime natural. And what inspired this podcast actually was a video that he posted up on YouTube. I caught it, and then I immediately texted him right away, and I was like blown away by how he looked. I'm going to link it in the show notes. So if you go to newyorkmuscleradio.com and click on episode number 36, you'll see the video. I'll tag it in here, and you can see what I'm talking about. John just absolutely blew away the competition with his size and his symmetry and everything. So it's perfect that we have him on the line right now, and we're going to pretty much go through this blueprint on what it's going to take to get the average person from average to pretty much superhuman. So, John, everything's good with you? How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Staying busy, do a little personal training and some online consultations. And I got my FloridaPhysique.com website. I've been really busy with that because there's always shows out here in Florida every weekend. So I'm covering those and doing video interviews and taking pictures. And I got my new book coming out pretty soon, which is Bodybuilding Heroes and Legends Part 1, which will cover a lot of the 1970s shows. So a lot of people are looking forward to that. So I'll let you guys know when that's out.
Yeah, you got to send me a copy of that, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so let's get this rolling. So this episode, like I said, is going to provide our listeners with a blueprint to take your body to the next level. So this is our case study subject is going to be an average male bodybuilder who has been training for over 5 years and has put on a solid base of muscle. He is strong and has reached a sticking point in his physique development. He wants to take his body to the next level to reach his full potential in bodybuilding. How do we get our student who is around 25 years old from competing at 5'11", 180 pounds to competing at around 200? So that's pretty much what we're going to be keeping in mind tonight for the episode. So the first thing we're going to look at will be training. With all the different training styles out there to get him to reach his max potential, what training variables would he have to take advantage of? So what did you use to pretty much get from that 180 to 220 training wise?
Well, what I did was I think my big growth years was when I was like 20, 21 years old. And that's right after I got out of competing in all the teenage shows that I did. And I knew I had to get bigger because I was going to go up into the open division and I needed to really step it up because I wasn't big enough to compete in the open division. So when I was a teenager, I was competing at about 170, 175 pounds, and I was maybe 185 in the off season. So what I did was I trained 4 days a week, and I split my body into 2 workouts. So I did all the pushing muscles, chest, triceps, shoulders on one day. And then the next day I did the pulling muscles, which is back and biceps and legs. So I did the pushing muscles on Monday, Thursday, and I did the pulling muscles and legs on Tuesday, Friday, and I took off Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. So I trained 4 days. I took 3 days off, and I did all the basic movements, all the basic exercises, and the whole goal was just to get bigger and stronger. And I was at a younger age then, so I was able to recuperate and train each muscle group twice a week, and just had only 4 days of training and then 3 days of complete rest.
So, and did you ever train 5? What do you think of the people who do train 5? Do you think that they won't be able to take advantage of it? Because I know now the new thing is, high volume, multiple times a week, train 5, 6 days a week. What are your thoughts on that for someone who really wants to take their physique to the next level?
Well, when you train 6 days a week, you're training almost every day, and your body never has a chance to recuperate. And in order to get bigger, especially if you're a thin guy and you have a fast metabolism, in order to get bigger, you really need the rest days. And I think some people think, the more I train, the better, the more is better approach, but it really doesn't work that way. You really need to have, I'd say, at least 2 or 3 rest days a week. And I never like to train more than twice a day or 2 days in a row without taking a day off. So if you're training 6 days in a row and you're training hard and you're training heavy, the workouts are just going to go down in quality because you're just not going to be able to give it 100% if you're training really hard and heavy. By the time you get to that 3rd, 4th workout day in a row, you're just going to be dragging, or you should be. If you're not dragging, then I would have to question whether you're really training hard enough.
And what about like in the gym? So that was pretty much the routine that you had set up for yourself. But what would you do as far as training goes? So like, would you be taking every set to failure? So what would you be doing in the gym? Would you be doing rest pause type sets or like those intensity techniques?
No, not really intensity techniques. I was just training heavy. So I would try and get a certain number of reps. Like it was usually around 6 to 8 repetitions. So I would do maybe my first set for like 10 reps, increase the weight, do my second set for 8 reps, and then I would probably do 2 more sets really heavier for like 6 reps. And like let's say, for example, if I was doing chest on the bench press, I would warm up, 135. I wouldn't even count that. And then I would do my first set for like 10 reps, go up in weight, and then do 8 reps, and then go up to my maximum weight for 6 reps and do 2 sets of that. Then I would go over and do, let's say, incline dumbbell presses. So I would do 3 sets of that. So I wouldn't have to warm up because I was already warmed up. So my first set would be moderately heavy, about 8 reps. Then I would increase the weight and then do 2 more sets of 6 reps. Then I would do my third exercise, which would be my last exercise, and I would do dumbbell flies. Same thing, I would do my first set of 8 repetitions, moderately heavy, and then next 2 sets, 6 repetitions each with my heaviest weight. So then my next chest workout on Thursday, I would do different exercises. So maybe I would do, let's say, dumbbell bench presses, incline barbell presses, and incline flies, or maybe dips. And then the next week on that Monday workout again, I try and go up in weight. See what I'm saying? I had 2 different workouts for each body part each week, so I never really hit a sticking point. And then I would always try to increase the weight every week when I did that same workout.
So you trained each body part pretty much twice a week at that point?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you think that's ideal? Because I believe that twice a week is pretty much optimal for a natural.
Yeah. I think if you can recuperate, then I think it really works well, as long as you're scheduling your training program so you're getting enough rest days. Now, if you're training like on a 3-day split, let's say you do chest and arms one day, legs the next day, and back and shoulders the next day, and then you come in again and do another 3 days, that's 6 days in a row. That's too much. So you have to schedule your training program so you're getting a rest day, like at least every 2 or 3 workouts.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Especially, like, I know for me, I love training Monday and Tuesday, and that Wednesday day off really, like, recharges me, and I'm ready to go back in on Thursday and Friday. So I agree with you there. What about, like, a 2-on, 1-off type split? You know, you think that would work also?
Yeah, I think that's a good split. And, you know, if you want to split the body up over 3 days, like maybe the pushing muscles, the pulling muscles, and then legs, you could do the 2-on, 1-off, and then just, like, say, do the pushing muscles first, the legs on day 2, take a day off, come back, do the pulling muscles, then do the pushing muscles, take another day off. You know, the routine would vary, but I think that's a good routine also.
Yeah, I agree with that. So discuss your approach to volume. How many sets should he be doing to reach his maximum potential? Should we be aiming to do as little as necessary or aiming to do as much as you can handle?
I believe in, like, moderate volume. So what I would do is, like what I did when I was training all those muscle groups in one workout. That's a lot of muscle groups. You know, I'm doing like chest, shoulders, triceps, and I even did calves. So that's 4 muscle groups in one workout. So it's easy to overtrain when you're doing that many muscle groups. So what I would do is I would do like maybe only like 10 to 12 sets per body part. And then a smaller muscle group like biceps, I would only do like 6 sets. You know, so depending on the size of the muscle group, that's how many. But what I would do is I would count the total amount of sets I was doing for the workout. So let's say I would only do like a total of 30 sets for the whole workout. So then I would just schedule it like that, and I would look at each body part, see how much I needed work on each body part, and then make sure I'm only doing like 30 or 35 total sets for the whole workout. That way you don't end up doing too much and training with over volume.
So where did you come up with that 30 sets, you know, for the workout? Was that just something that you discovered as time went on, or?
Yeah, well, I just looked at like the size of the muscle group, like chest or back, I would do maybe 12 sets. Legs, I might do 10 sets for my quadriceps, maybe 6 or 8 sets for my hamstrings. Shoulders, I would do, you know, you have to work the front, the side, the back, and then some traps. So you might do 12 sets for shoulders. And then biceps, like I said, you'd only do like 6 sets, and triceps maybe 10 sets. The whole idea is just to train with the most compound exercises, the most effective exercises, and hit them hard for like 3 or 4 sets per exercise, and only do like anywhere from 3 to 4 exercises per body part, depending on the size of the muscle group. With biceps or calves, you'd only be doing like 2 exercises, and then you just figure it out from there and just count it up. You just don't want to. You just want to have a limit on it, so you're not doing too many sets for the whole workout. Because if you start doing 15 sets of muscle group and you're doing 4 muscle groups, you know, you're going to end up doing 60 sets.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's a good idea. You kind of cap the workout so your overall volume is not so high. How long would that generally take you per workout?
Well, I took my time. You know, I was training heavy and resting a lot in between sets, so it would probably be at least a 2-hour workout.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So looking at the picture of the whole off season, should you periodize your training or should you just kind of keep going with what you said? So at any point in your training, did you take time off, or did you say, okay, I'm going to do a higher volume type training right now, or I'm going to switch to lower volume? What would you do in that sense?
Well, when I was younger, I was recuperating really fast, I guess, because I was so young and I was eating a lot of food. So I didn't really periodize it at all. I just trained hard and heavy every week, week in, week out. If I had to do it again, I think what I would do is maybe train anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks and try and increase the weights throughout that whole cycle, and then maybe take either a full week off or go really light for a week, and then come back and maybe try different exercises. But for me, going heavy, using the compound exercises, doing a moderate amount of sets, that worked well for building size and building strength. So I never did anything where I was doing lighter workouts or more sets or supersets or anything like that. You know, I could see a value in that, maybe doing 3 or 4 weeks of where you're going lighter. But for me, the whole idea was just to get a massive muscular physique. I just trained with compound exercises, basic exercises, heavy weights, 6 to 8 reps. That was really the formula for me, and I just stuck with that.
Yeah, I agree with that, though. I think those principles are pretty sound. What about
Yeah.
as far as like machines go? You didn't really use any machines in your training.
No, I always did
Just
barbells and dumbbells.
Yeah, mine too. It's pretty simple like that though, but it really works. It really makes your physique look a lot different. A lot of these bodybuilders nowadays use a lot of machines.
A lot of machines, a lot of cables. Yeah, they don't understand what it takes. I remember one of the first bodybuilding, I think it was actually the first bodybuilding show I ever saw. The great Sergio Oliva was the guest poser. It was like in the mid 1970s. And I didn't really know who Sergio was. And he came out and he blew me away, man. He had like a 28-inch waist and 22-inch arms. And it was so weird back then. He came, after he got done posing, he came back out in a bathrobe and he sat on a stool in the middle of the stage and he had a microphone and he was taking questions from the audience. And somebody said, "Hey, Sergio, you use machines or free weights?" And he goes, "Free weights, no machines, no machines." He had the Cuban accent. I always remembered that. I'm like, here's one of the most massive guys I ever saw in my life. And he says, "No machines, just use free weights."
Yeah, he arguably probably one of the best Olympians there ever was.
Yeah, he was really incredible. You had to see that guy in person to really appreciate how amazing he looked.
So as a lifter advances in their career, should they be altering their training to continue to make progress? So like let's look at, for example, like Lane Norton right now, he's doing a high volume, high frequency approach, whereas Dorian did more of like very low volume and very like 1 or 2 sets per body part. I know you said you recommend moderate, but what's your take on either way? Because I know we had a guest on the other day, Jeff Willett, and he recommended very low volume for naturals. So
Yeah.
now you're recommending medium, moderate more so. So what's your take on either end of the spectrum there?
How many sets was Jeff recommending?
Probably 4 like for a smaller body part, probably like 4, and I think for a bigger body part, like 6, something like that. He uses Max OT. I don't know if you've ever.
Yeah. Hmm.
So he was recommending very lower, and he says actually the later he got in his career, he actually began to use less sets. So he would actually drop it down a little bit more and just focus more on the intensity.
Yeah, I sort of agree more with his approach than the high volume. I mean, I think when you take in the warm-up sets and everything, he's probably doing about as many sets as I was doing, maybe a little bit less. But yeah, I think with Max OT, you're basically using just as much weight as you can use for a certain amount of reps, and that's pretty much what I was doing too. My whole goal when I was trying to get bigger was just to get stronger on the basic exercises, because I knew the more weight I used with the basic movements, the bigger my muscles were going to get, and that was my whole approach. High volume, I've heard like of Lane Norton. I've heard of like that German method of training where you're training squatting like 4 or 5 days a week. I really don't understand that. I mean, I guess you could do it. I guess it works. But with me, it was just training hard and then giving enough rest and then training hard again and it was pretty much a basic approach.
So, and the rep ranges that you pretty much stuck to, I would say like 6 to 8 pretty much for majority of the sets, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, 6 to 8 or 6 to 10.
So you never really went higher than 10.
Yeah, right.
at all in your training? I mean, maybe during pre-contest, maybe you went up a little higher. You just kind of stayed with that throughout pretty much your career.
Well, like maybe a chest workout, I would do, maybe cable crossovers at the end for like 12 reps or 15 reps. But for me, I mean, that 6 to 10 rep range was what built the muscle. So I always stuck with that. Even when I was getting ready for a contest, I always trained heavy. I've experimented with doing higher repetitions, especially with legs. And it's sort of weird. I think when you start to know your body, there's the white muscle fibers and the red muscle fibers. And I'm sure you know about this and you've read about this. The white muscle fibers respond best to heavier weights and more high intensity, and then if you have more endurance type or red muscle fibers in your muscle, and each muscle group might be different. Like your chest might be more white muscle fibers, but your shoulders might be more red muscle fibers. So a lot of times when a person has a muscle group that doesn't respond, especially it doesn't respond well to the basic 6 to 8 or 6 to 10 repetition range, they may need to do higher repetitions. Like for me, for example, my shoulders, I think, have some more endurance type muscle fibers in them than the white muscle fibers, because if I did like 6 to 8 reps on shoulders, they just wouldn't grow. So what I would do with shoulders is I would do heavy laterals, like side laterals, for 6 to 8 reps, but I would do a drop set, maybe a triple drop set. So I'd do like maybe the 50s for six reps, and then go down to the 40s for like another 5 or 6, and then go down to the 30s for another 6 to 8. And that would really blow up my shoulders. Now, if I did that for chest, and I did a drop set for my chest or my back grew real fast doing heavier movements. I didn't get much out of it. It just felt like I wasn't getting more of a pump. I just felt like I was going too far with it, and it really wasn't responding to that. So like my back, if I do like heavy barbell rows for 6 to 8 reps, boom, it blows up. Now I think that has more white muscle fibers. Now my shoulders, if I did six heavy reps with side laterals, I wouldn't really get much of a pump with that. So I think when you get to know your body and you understand how each body part responds, you'll sort of figure out like what type of training you need.
I agree with that. When I first started and I picked up your book and stuff, because you mentioned a lot of this stuff in your book, I
Yeah.
started following that, 6 to 10 rep range. But for me, it wasn't until I really started doing higher reps when I was more in the 12 rep range that I really started to see changes in my body. And I think it's because of, like you said, just those areas. But it was interesting you said your drop set approach, because I think that it's a cool way to get those higher reps in also with still, progressing with the muscle. Would you do that for multiple sets, or would you just kind of do that for one big set at the end? So
I
like
would do it like the last 2 sets. So I would do, let's say I was doing side lateral raises. I might warm up with 35 pounds for 12 reps just to get the blood in there. And then I would do like 40 pounds and then maybe 45 pounds. And then when I got to the last 2 sets, like 50-pound dumbbells, I would go real heavy and I'd only get like 6. I'd drop down to it and then do that triple drop set for the last 2 sets to really blow them up. So it's a really good approach, like you said, because you're still training heavy. So I'm still following the principles, but I'm extending the set out by doing the drop set. I would do that with calves a lot too. Calves are a hard muscle to grow for most people, and I think it's a couple reasons. I think the muscle fibers usually very dense and tough because we're used to walking on them every day. And also, if you think about it, your calves are the farthest muscle from your heart, and your heart's pumping the blood. So it's hard to get that pump in your calves. So I found that the best exercise for building my calves was to do donkey calf raises. And back in the old days, we would do them with the guys sitting on our back, like Arnold did.
I did them in the gym. Me and my training partner at the time used to do them all the time. We used to get looks like crazy, but they really work.
Yeah, especially if you do them now, you really get looks because nobody does them. But back in the 80s, everybody did those. So I would have 2 guys sit on my back, and I would have a weight belt with like a 100-pound dumbbell. So the 2 guys each weighed over 200 pounds. The dumbbell is 100 pounds, so that's over 500 pounds of weight. So I would get maybe 15 reps with all that weight, and then one of the guys would jump off, the other guy would scoot back. I'd get another 10 or 15 reps, then he'd jump off, and then I'd get another 10 or 15 with just the dumbbell. So you think about it, you're doing 30 to 45 reps. I mean, you're getting a crazy, crazy pump, and you're still working with heavy weight. It's not like I'm using a light weight and just pumping out 50 reps. I'm doing 15 heavy reps, and then 15 moderate heavy reps, and then 15 like lighter reps.
Yeah, and I think a machine that mimics that now. So if you're not comfortable doing donkey calf raises, I think the leg press using that for calf raises really works similar to that. I mean, you could still do the drop sets, but you have to have someone pull off the weight. But
Right.
I felt that the leg press gave me similar results without having to throw someone on my back and getting,
Yeah.
looks. So for those of you that
Right.
don't want to do donkey calf raises in the gym, you could definitely give those a try.
Right.
So for our case study person, we actually should have given him a name, but we didn't. So what would be the ideal training split for him in detail? So let's kind of go in detail and put together a routine for our guy. Let's call him Steve. Let's give him a name, Steve.
Okay. Do we know what he was doing before, Anthony? Or is this just a up guy?
Let's just say he was training pretty much 4 or 5 days a week. He was doing probably a push-pull legs. We'll go with that.
Okay. And he was training how many days in a row?
He was doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
I think that's a good routine. If he wants to get bigger, then he would just maybe he's doing too many sets, or he's not doing the right exercises. He's not training heavy enough, or he could just not be eating enough food. A combination of any of those things.
All right. So what would be the ideal training split? So if this was one of your clients and they came to you, what would you put together for them as far as training goes?
I would have him go 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and I would split up the routine. We could do like a push-pull like I was doing, where you're training half the body on Monday, half the body on Tuesday, or if that was too much, because that was a really hard workout for me, because doing legs, back, and biceps was really, really tough, because I was squatting heavy and leg press, and then we'd have to go do back, have to do barbell rows and deadlifts. It was really, really tough. I remember my training partner was bitching at me every week, every time we did it. But if that was too much, he could do like pushing muscles and then do legs and then take a day off and then do back and then do the pushing muscles again, take the weekend off, come back on Monday, do legs, and then do the back exercises, then take Wednesday off, and just keep alternating like that. So he's only training 4 days a week, and he's still using all the basic heavy compound movements, doing 6 to 8 reps, and just keeping the volume moderate, and I think that would work.
And you would cap him every workout at 30 sets like you said, or would you maybe do it based off what he's doing, obviously? So let's just say he's doing around that right now. Would you still cap it there, or would you have him do a little bit more, or?
Maybe even a little bit less. I mean, if he's splitting up that many body parts, he could probably do like 25 sets, for the whole workout.
That's cool, and I like the way that you did that, because a lot of people just kind of go in the gym aimlessly and just, okay, I'm doing back today, and just do endless amounts of sets, or they'll take
Right.
the workout and okay, today I'm supposed to do legs, like you said, legs, back, and biceps, and just kind of pick random stuff. But when you give yourself that limit, it makes you work a little bit harder, because you have 30 sets total to complete those muscle groups. And like you said, your training partner was bitching at you because it was a lot of work, but you got it in 30 sets, whereas a lot of other people, 30 sets of work for them may be totally different. So I like the way you cap it at that, and I think that's a good thing, and I think people are going to take that away from the episode. That's really cool. So obviously,
the other thing is, too, it's the exercises that you use, too, I remember I worked out with a guy, this is a long time ago, it's probably like 20 years ago, and I don't even know who this guy was, but he just said that he wasn't getting anything out of his back workout. So I said, well, why don't you come in and work out back with me? And I didn't charge him or anything. He did the workout with me. So what I did for back was we started off with like 3 or 4 sets of wide grip chin-ups, and then we did heavy barbell rows, and then we did T-bar rows, and we finished off with deadlifts. So it was only 4 exercises. I think we did 4 sets of barbell rows, probably 4 sets of chins, 3 sets of T-bar rows, and 3 sets of deadlifts. And I swear to God, by the end of the workout, he threw up, because it was so intense. He wasn't used to doing those heavy basic movements. He was used to doing like pull downs and cables and, maybe machines, if they had the machines back then, I don't remember. But he wasn't doing those heavy exercises that demand a lot from your body. When you do like barbell rows or squats, deadlifts, those are compound movements that are using like 4 or 5 muscle groups, and it really takes a lot out of your body. If you do a barbell row right, it really will exhaust you after 3 or 4 sets, especially if you're using heavy weight, you got the right form, and you're doing like 6 to 8 reps. You're going to be exhausted after 3 or 4 sets. So it's not just doing, a certain amount of exercises and a certain amount of repetitions. It's using the right movements too, because using the right movements is really what's going to build the muscle.
I agree. Do you have a video of you doing the rows off the block or nah?
Yeah, I think I do from my first um, video, which was called Real Muscle.
If you have that little clip on YouTube, send it to me because I like to put it in the show notes for everyone because I think that that was a unique way to do rows. And like you said in the
Okay.
last episode you were on, you really saw a big difference doing back that way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And it brought me to another question while you were talking. You mentioned deadlifts, so you did deadlifts at the end of your workout, which for anyone who ever did that, that's totally brutal. But
Yeah.
you would reach up to 6 to 8 reps with deadlifts as well.
Yeah, I would do 3 sets. I would do like 2 plates, 225. I'd do that 10 times. And then I do 3 plates about 8 times. And then I do 4 plates about 6 times. So I wasn't really doing deadlifts like as a power movement. I see a lot of guys now, and I don't know why this is all of a sudden taking off. I see a lot of guys doing heavy deadlifts. And I'm talking like 1 or 2 or 3 reps, slamming the weight down. And I see a lot where they pick it up and then they just drop it.
Yeah.
And that's not how I did deadlifts at all. I was doing them more for muscular development. I wanted to build not only my lower back, but I also wanted to build those spinal erector muscles that go down the middle of your back. And then I was doing them last, so I already did like chin ups, which gets the width of your back, your upper back, and then I was doing heavy rows like barbell rows and T-bar rows. So my lats were super pumped. So then when I went to do deadlifts, it was almost like a finishing off movement, but it was a heavy finishing off movement. So I wasn't going for like 2 or 3 or 4 reps. I was doing, 6 to 10 reps, but I was pumping it and I was pumping that lower back and I was pumping those spinal erectors. So deadlifts aren't really a lat movement and you're not going to build bigger lats doing deadlifts. You're going to build lower back strength. But when you start doing only like 2 or 3 reps, you're not really getting any muscular development out of that. You're just going to develop strength. So I wasn't looking for strength. I was looking more for development. So that's why I would do them as a finishing off. Nowadays, because I have compressed disc in my lower back from all that heavy training, I don't do deadlifts to finish off. I do hyperextensions. But I always thought deadlifts was a better compound movement, for getting that lower back pump. I'm still training my lower back with hyperextensions, but if I could, I would still do deadlifts because you're using your legs, you're using your back, and it felt like a great pump when I got done doing 3 sets of deadlifts with that moderately heavy weight.
Of course, after doing squats before that, like you did,
Yeah, right.
all that heavy leg work, where your legs were tired too. I mean, we forgot to mention that as well. It's not like you just went in and said, "I'm doing back today." You did legs before you did back. So
Right, right. But even when I split it up later on, and I was splitting up my workouts over, I was doing like the pushing movements, the pulling movements, and legs by themselves. By doing the deadlifts at the end after all the rowing movements, it's totally different. I think doing it like that because your back is all pumped up, your lats are all pumped up, and you feel it differently than you would if you just started off doing heavy deadlifts, which is again more of a power movement, really.
yeah, I agree. And for anyone who's ever tried it, you totally understand what he's talking about because doing them at the end, like he said, it's totally different movement than when you do it in the beginning.
The other thing too, Anthony, is these deadlifts now. Like I said, these guys drop the weight, which I don't understand. I mean, if you're a power lifter, I guess you could drop the weight from the top. But the way I was
Actually, in contest, you're not even supposed to drop the weight from the
really,
top. You're supposed to control it all the way down. And
yeah,
actually, if you drop it from the top, you'll get flagged and the lift won't count.
okay, yeah, you should. Because the way I always did them was I always came down slow, touched the weight to the floor, and then came right back up. So it was like a continuous movement. It almost looked like I was bouncing the weight off the floor, but I really wasn't because I was coming down slow, just letting it touch. I wouldn't like put the weight on the floor, rest, and then pull it back up because I was always afraid of hurting my lower back doing it that way. I thought just by going up and down, I just felt the tension more in my. Again, it was more of a back movement than it was a power movement.
Yeah, well, you were using it for a different reason. Obviously, if a powerlifter is listening to this, that's going to be total opposite of what the training
Yeah.
goes. But we're not. We're talking about Steve here, who's 180 pounds and wants to get to 200 on stage. All right, so obviously none of these training tips will matter without proper nutrition. Currently, Steve is consuming 3,000 calories per day, maintaining his weight. The goal is to bring their body weight up to 230 pounds, which is similar to actually what you did
Yeah.
when you competed, while staying relatively lean and not getting sloppy. Do you recommend that approach, or do you think it's necessary for the lifter to get somewhat fluffy?
I don't know if it's fluffy, but yeah, he needs to he needs to increase his calories in order to put on size. And if he puts on a little fat, that's okay, as long as he's putting on muscle as he's putting on the fat. The way I always looked at bulking up was I would increase my calories, but I felt like by increasing my calories, now I have to train heavier at the gym. I can't just do the same workout, and I can't just take it easy. It's not just a matter of eating. I would eat more and then use those extra calories to train heavier at the gym, which would tear down more muscle tissue, and then I would eat more to recuperate, and it was just a constant cycle. You know what I mean? So I almost felt like I owed a debt at the gym to train heavier if I was eating more calories. So I had to train harder and heavier if I was eating more. And it was those extra calories and those extra carbs allowed me to train heavier and allowed me to increase my strength, because by taking in an excess of calories, you're going to be able to train heavier and harder, especially if you have a fast metabolism and you can't gain weight. The only way you're going to gain weight is you have to eat extra calories. You're never going to get bigger, especially if you're natural, by just eating, a maintenance level of calories. It'll never happen.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I mean, you have to make sure that you're eating, but I think this also brings up another question, especially maybe this is for more beginners. But how do you know if you're actually gaining muscle? Because we know muscle doesn't come on overnight. Muscle tissue grows rather slowly. How does like a natural guy actually know if he's gaining muscle or gaining fat? So how would Steve know? Okay, I'm going to bump up my calories. I'm going to start eating. I'm gaining weight. But how would he know if it's actually muscle versus actually fat?
Two things. If your weights are increasing at the gym, that means your strength is increasing, which means you're going to put on more muscle, especially if you're doing the right repetition range. But the other thing is he should take measurements, and not too often, because like you said, it takes a while for the muscle to grow. But take measurements like once a month. So you take measurements once a month, and if your waist is going up, that's okay. But as long as your arms are going up, your legs are going up, your chest is going up, okay? So if your waist is going up and the other things aren't going up much, then it's you're probably putting on more fat than muscle. So that means either you're not training hard enough, or you're eating the wrong foods, or maybe you're eating too much food. Because there is a limit. I mean, everybody, even people with super fast metabolisms, you have to cap it at a certain level. You have to eat a certain amount of calories in order to get the optimal results.
Well, has that ever happened to you in your training? So, like, I'm assuming that you did that, every month you'd take your measurements and stuff. Has that ever happened to you where you had a month where you just said, I'm not really making, my arms stayed the same, everything kind of stayed the same. Has that ever happened for you?
Well, as I got older, I couldn't bulk up like that anymore, because when your metabolism starts to change and your hormone levels change, if you keep eating like that, you are going to put on more fat than muscle. But for younger guys, especially if they're eating good food. Now, maybe another problem could be that you're eating too much junk food or too much restaurant food. When I was bulking up, I was pretty strict, and I would eat more just staying at home food, and food that I cooked. So I knew it was good bodybuilding food. It's just I would increase the quantities of it and eat a lot more of it. But when you're young, like I said, as long as you're training hard and you're training heavy, at least for me, I was able to put on more muscle than fat because I was training so hard. I was doing the right kind of workout routine, and I was eating enough food. But it was the right kind of food, and it was good. It was good calories.
I think that's a good tip also that you mentioned with the measuring yourself, because I think that a lot of people kind of go over that. The same thing with a training journal. I think a training journal is extremely important to keep, because this way you know what you're doing in the gym. But I feel like the measurement thing once a month, I think that's a good way to track progress. And once every month is a more optimal time. If you did it every week, you're going to get frustrated because you're not going to see any changes. But once a month, what would like an average, I guess the average guy expect to gain in a month if they were on eating good and doing everything you're saying? What would be like the average kind of results you would get or expect to get? I know it's a tough question to answer, but
like your bigger muscle groups, like your chest or your legs, that might go up like a quarter of an inch. Your arms will probably go up slower, maybe a quarter of an inch. Maybe your chest and legs would go up maybe a half an inch. And then the arms would maybe be an eighth of an inch or a quarter of an inch. It all depends on, if you never were eating that much food before, or you were doing a different kind of routine and you weren't doing more of the basic exercises, and then you start doing the basic exercises, you start doing them right, you start training hard, man, you could really, really explode in growth for the first few months, you know.
Perfect. What nutritional strategies do you recommend? You know, so maybe like what type of ratio should they be following, like a 40-40-20? Like, so what did you do when you were in your big bulk phase?
Well, with protein, I always tried to eat not a super lot of protein because I think your body can only utilize so much protein. So I would eat about 1.25 grams of protein for each pound of body weight. So like 1.25 times your body weight. That's what I would eat for as far as protein goes. So the way I sort of broke it down was my complete protein foods, like my eggs, my chicken, fish, meat, all that. I would add all that up. And if I weighed 200 pounds, I would try and eat at least 200 grams of complete protein foods. And then the extra stuff like bread, oatmeal, rice, that's going to have a little bit of protein also. And then that extra would be my 0.25%. You know what I'm saying?
That makes a lot of sense.
So if I, let's see, I can't do the math in my head, but 200 times 1.25, you know, if I weighed 200 pounds, that's how much protein I would eat. And then the rest of my calories would basically come from carbohydrates. And I would eat a lot of complex carbohydrates. I would probably eat twice as many complex carbohydrates as protein. So if I was eating like 250 grams of protein, I would be eating like 500 grams of carbs.
And
but it was most, so each meal would have like one source of protein, like eggs, and then I would have like oatmeal and like bread. So I would have 2 sources of carbs and 1 source of protein.
And what about fat?
Well, the fat was coming mostly from the protein. So it would come from the eggs. It would come from the beef. I really don't know it was probably about maybe 80 grams of fat if I was eating 500 grams of carbs and about 250 grams of protein, probably 80 grams of fat.
And now I remember in the last podcast you were talking about how you used to, you know, you were gaining on like 5,000 calories a day. So when you got up to that point, I mean, it's hard to kind of get those good quality foods in. What would be like a typical day of eating for you when you were at the 5,000 calorie mark?
Wow, if I can remember back that far, like
I'm talking like it's yesterday.
Yeah. Like I said, I think I said this on the first one. For breakfast, I had like a 7-egg omelet with Munster cheese in it, and 3 slices of whole wheat toast with butter and honey. My protein drinks, I had 2 protein drinks a day. I would make them with like 2 cups of milk, a banana, some ice cream, protein powder, and a banana. I remember dinner, I would have like half a pound of ground beef with rice and some other kind of carbohydrate. I don't know. I'll have to look at I actually still got a lot of those old notebooks where I wrote down my food and like what I was eating and how I was training. I should get those out and look at those.
Yeah, you should. You should actually put that out. I think I'd be interested to see that. I think other people would too.
Yeah, because I remember like in 1996, you were talking about that videotape that you saw. That was in 1992, and that was the year I won my first Natural Mr. Universe contest, and I think I weighed 198 pounds in that one. And then a couple years later, I remember my goal was I wanted to be like 10 pounds bigger. And I won my second Natural Mr. Universe contest weighing 208. So I was 10 pounds bigger. I wasn't as ripped as I was at 198. And I think I probably could have been like at least 3 or 4 pounds lighter to be really ripped. But I remember I was really proud of that increase in size over that 4-year period from 1992 to 1996. And I remember in 1996, I had a long off season. I trained all year, and I got my body weight up to like 243 pounds. And that's when I was eating around, I remember like 600 or 700 grams of complex carbohydrates. And that was all good food. So yeah, I'm going to take a look at those and see if I can find those training journals and diet journals and see what I was eating. Because I remember that was a great year for me. I did win the Natural Universe again, but I think the judges, they wanted me to be more ripped. And then when I won the Natural Olympia 2 years later, I was probably at least 4 pounds lighter, 4 or 5 pounds lighter, and I was more ripped. But I thought that the way I looked that year in 96, I loved the way I looked then because I felt like I was really big, really full. I felt like a monster, and I really love that look.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of the same look that I think a lot of people are looking for. A lot of these guys nowadays, especially in the contest, they focus more on being ripped. But that bigness is kind of why everyone gets into the sport. You want to be big, you want to be a monster.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah,
anyone who gets into this and say, "Oh man, I want shredded glutes."
yeah. Right. I know exactly. I remember my arms on stage were 19 and a quarter inches
And that's
on
insane.
stage. Yeah,
That's
and
insane,
that was
especially for a natural. So for those of you listening who are naturals, there's hope. There's guys that do it. So
yeah, yeah. I know. When people see pictures of that, they don't believe I was natural, but I was. But it was a lot of work. It was a lot of training, and like I said, I was up to 240 pounds, 242 pounds in the off season, and it was a lot of food, man. I mean, and that was all year of eating a lot of food. It wasn't just like for a couple months. It was all year. I mean, I got tired of eating because it was so much food. So that's another thing too. Like I remember years after when I stopped competing, I would see natural bodybuilders, and I would see sometimes guys make this unbelievable progress. And for a while, I had this show called the Natural Bodybuilding Radio Show, and we would have natural bodybuilders on there. And I don't want to mention any names, but there was a couple of guys that they didn't look like they were clean, and we had them on the show. And I was asking them, "Well, how did you get big? How did you increase your size?" And they were just like, "Oh, I increased my protein," or it's just really like vague answers. And I remember if somebody would have asked me that question in '96, and I would have been a guest on somebody else's show, man, I would have been able to tell them exactly what I did as far as my training, as far as my diet, because I had it all detailed out. I had it all planned out. And it was a lot of fucking work for a whole year to do that, But I knew exactly what I did. So when these guys give vague answers or they give answers that don't make sense, I wonder if they're really natural, because in order to really make gains as a natural bodybuilder, you got to work out hard. You got to train heavy. You got to have your diet right, and you got to bulk up. And it's a lot of work, and it can be done, but it's a lot of work. And so when people don't really have any answers for me when I ask those questions, I really wonder if they're really telling the truth.
I agree with that. Did you feel uncomfortable at that heavy weight? Like, how were you able to, plus, you're a bodybuilder, so you also want to look good. So obviously at that weight, you weren't, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you weren't very, very lean, but were you like uncomfortable? That must have been, hard to do that a whole year, being that heavy a whole year.
No, I wasn't uncomfortable. I felt great. I loved it. I love being big, and I love training heavy. I wasn't ripped. I mean, I think my waist was like 37 or 38 inches, but I was big, and I knew a lot of it was muscle. I had a lot of fat on me, but it wasn't like I was fat. I just felt like I was big, and I just felt great. It felt great being 240 pounds and going in the gym. And I remember we were doing a routine. My training partner at the time was Mel Chansey, and we were doing a routine where we were doing 10 sets of squats, and we did 10 sets of squats with 405. It was crazy. I mean, there's no way you could do that if you weren't eating a lot of food,
Yeah, no way you'd be able to recover from that.
Oh, right.
Try doing that while you're dieting.
Right.
So what rate of weight gain should we be looking to gain weight at? So for Steve, he's 180 pounds. He wants to get to 230 and pretty much do what you did. You went from competing at 180 pounds to around 200 on contest. So what rate of weight gain should we be looking at here for Steve?
Maybe like 5 pounds a month, something like that. I mean, I think that would probably be pretty good. I mean, I didn't really like try to limit it I just tried to gain as much as I could back then, because for me, gaining any weight at all was really difficult. And I remember, I don't know if I told you guys this on the first show, but I started bulking up right after my last teenage contest. And when I was a teenager, I would compete at around 170, 175, and I was maybe 185 off season. So I didn't really have much of an off season when I was a teenager, because I was competing so often. So once I got done with the teenage contest, I said, okay, now I got to really focus on just getting bigger. So I knew I was going to take at least a year off. And within 6 months, my weight went from probably my last show as a teenager, I was 170, 175, and I went up to like 205 in 6 months' time, just because my body was sucking up those calories. But once I got to 205, I was stuck, and I couldn't gain weight at all. And I remember for 8 months, I could not get past 206. I was between 204, 206, and I was eating good, and I was training 4 days a week. My training was on point. I was doing the basic exercises, 6 to 8 reps. I just wasn't eating enough calories, for as fast as my metabolism was. And I would say that was probably like my natural limit. You know, people talk about their natural set points or their natural limits. I think that was my natural limit. And in order to get past it, I just had to basically force feed myself and eat the kind of foods, the kind of meals that I was telling you I was eating. And I think I was eating I increased it to about 5,000 calories a day. And that's the point I had to go up to. And once I did that, it was so much food that my body started to respond. And before you know it, I got up to 210, then I got to 215. And it was probably within 6 months that I went from 205 to 230. So how much weight is that? That's like 25 pounds in 6 months.
Yeah. So you put on what, like 50 pounds in a year, 60 pounds in a year, something like that?
Well, no, I got up to 205. Yeah,
That full year that you bulked, you gained how much in that time?
Well, I went up from 175 to 205 within 6 months, but that was pretty easy. I didn't really even have to really push to get up to that. I think my body was just looking to grow. And then once I got to 205, I was stuck at there for 8 months. And then within 6 months, I went from 205 to 230 because I really pushed the calories and really started eating more.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. And I think people should take that away. You know, it definitely takes time. You actually answered what my next question was what happens when they hit a sticking point in growth. You know, you have to kind of look at the picture and assess, you know, what's going on. Like John did, you know, he was stuck at 205 and he couldn't get past it. He looked at his training, and because he had a training journal, he was able to look back on it and really say, okay, my training is good. You know, what's the lacking point here? And that's when I realized I need to up my calories. So what did you up them from? I'm just curious. So you went from what to 5,000? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember because I'm probably eating maybe around 3,500. I don't even think I was tracking it as much as I do now or as I did later on. I was just eating what I thought was enough, but it definitely wasn't enough because I wasn't gaining weight. And I think a lot of guys make that mistake.
Yep.
I hear people say that all the time. Like, I'm trying to get big and I'm eating a lot of food. And I ask them, well, how much food? And they don't know. Well, I'm eating a lot. Well, what's a lot? How many calories? How many carbs? You know, and they don't know. So sometimes when they start to count it all up and they count up what they eat on a daily basis, they're like, wow, I'm not eating as much as I thought. So in order to eat that many calories, you really got to eat a lot of food. And also, I remember, Anthony, what I did too was you were asking about my fats. I remember when I was bulking up, I really made a specific effort to really increase my fats because fats obviously have twice as many calories as carbs and protein. So if you want to increase your calories, if you increase your fats, you're going to do that twice as fast with increasing your fat levels, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, just backing up a little bit, like to what you said, like a lot of people come to you and say that, you know, a lot of people come to me and say the same thing too. I want to gain weight. I want to lose weight. I'm eating healthy. You know, bottom line, it really doesn't matter. All that matters is the calories. You know, you got to make sure that you're consuming. If you want to gain weight, you got to make sure you keep consuming more and more. If you want to lose weight, you got to consume less. It's very simple, but people make it very, very complicated. And without a proper training journal or food journal, you won't be able to know. Like you just said, you know, I wasn't sure. I thought I was doing this. And a lot of people have that trouble because it does take time to track these things, but it's an investment well worth it in yourself because this is what's going to take you to the next level as far as your physique goes.
Yeah, and it's all individual too. You know, I mean, my body at 20 was different than my body at 30. So it changes. Your body changes as you go through time. And as you put on more muscle mass, your body's going to change. And, you know, one 20-year-old guy is going to be different than another 20-year-old guy. So you really have to find out what works for you. And the only way you're going to do that is you have to really start counting up your calories and start figuring it out. And the problem with today with a lot of guys and a lot of girls is they start using coaches. And the coaches tell them what to eat, when to eat. And they don't have any idea what works for their body. And the coach does. The coach is figuring it out, but they don't have any idea what works for their own body. And in order to discover what's working for you, you really have to, you know, it's experimentation, really. I mean, it helps if you have somebody maybe guiding you and telling you what things to do, you know, like we're talking about now. But for your individual body, you really have to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, and pay attention to those things. And again, it goes back to what I just said. You know, making sure you have a training journal and food log is extremely important because this is your data. This is what you're going to use to make your assessments on yourself. And without that, you're lost.
And most people eat the same things every day. I mean, I know I do, you know, and even if in the off season, we have certain meals we like, certain foods we like. So we could sort of, you know, you could sort of figure out how much food you're eating from that. And it's not like it's going to take a lot of work every day to go over to, because it's not like it's going to be different every day. It's going to be pretty much the same thing every day, you know.
Exactly.
Right.
So if your goal is to gain the most amount of size possible while staying lean, do you think that cardio should be involved in Steve's routine?
No, not at all. I don't think so. I mean, it all depends again on your metabolism, but if he's having a hard time gaining weight, he shouldn't be doing any cardio. No.
I agree with that. I'm not going to go further into that because I agree with that. I think if you're expending, but then you could also make the argument that you can also offset some fat gain by keeping some cardio in there, and obviously good for overall health. But I mean, a heavy weight training set is definitely really good for your heart and lungs too. So I mean, a heavy set of squats and deadlifts is definitely not going to have you.
Absolutely, way better than walking on a treadmill, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. So,
and if he's a young guy, he's probably not going to have heart problems unless he's got something genetically wrong with him.
no, but just looking forward for health reasons is what I mean.
Yeah.
All right, so let's wrap this up. So, John, in your words, let's summarize the best strategy to take Steve to reach his new potential. So, if Steve came to you and said, I want to do what you did. I want to go from 180 to 200 on stage, and I want to get to 230 in the off season. Summarize what we just went through. So, what would you tell him?
I would say train 4 days a week. He could split the body up over 2 days or 3 days, depending on what works best for him. Focus on using the basic exercises, the compound movements. The emphasis should be on using heavier and heavier weights for the 6 to 8 rep range. So he needs to keep a training journal and then just write that down every week and then try to increase his weights each week. Just keep the sets moderate, doing no more than 12 sets of body part, and then for smaller body parts, bring it down to like eight sets of body part for the total body part. Keep it around 25, 30 sets for the whole workout. Don't do anything on those 3 days of rest. Just rest totally. Don't do any cardio. And then with your diet, eat a little more than your body weight as far as protein goes. Eat 6 meals a day. Eat complex carbohydrates, probably double the amount of carbs that you're eating for your protein, and then start keeping a food journal and writing down everything you eat, and then weighing yourself every week. And if you're not making progress, then you need to increase your calories.
Perfect. That's the same exact approach I would recommend for someone in that shoes as well, because it's not rocket science to gain size. The thing is, and a lot of people have trouble with this, it just takes time.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time. Like you said, a year of eating 5,000 calories. Now, it sounds fun for people listening, but try it.
Right.
It's definitely not fun. 5,000 calories. I mean, think about how you feel, at Thanksgiving dinner. You're so full, you don't want to move. And think about feeling like that all day long.
Yeah.
It's
not like you're that full all the time. It's just that the meals are a lot, and it's like a lot of chewing, it's a lot of eating, and it's a lot of fixing food, but it's a lot of work. The diet is a lot of work, but that's a huge, huge part of it. And if you have a fast metabolism and you're trying to change the look of your body, the way you look at it is like this: your body wants to stay where it's at. It doesn't want to change. So if you're stuck at 200 pounds, like when I was stuck at 205, and I was really, really trying to change it. For 8 months, I couldn't change it. It was stuck there. It liked being 205. It didn't want to change. So in order for me to change it, I had to push it so hard with not only my training, but also with my diet. And I had to push it way beyond its normal limits in order to really change the whole look of my body. And when I got up to 225, 230, I did totally change the whole look of my body. My body looked totally different. I grew in places, like I pushed the muscles out in places where it never was like that before. So in order to affect that kind of lasting change, you really have to push your body past your normal limits.
Yeah, you kind of have to force it.
Yes, exactly. Perfect.
Get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable, because that's pretty much what's going to happen.
Right.
And I agree. I mean, we try to always do that in the gym, and people think that the gym is always the answer for everything. Nutrition's obviously very important, training obviously too, but your nutrition is definitely going to really what's going to dictate what's happening in your body. What your body's going to do with that, environment that you're eating. So, like you said, you got to really push it. If you're not gaining, you got to keep plugging away, and it can be a job, because I've had some guys with fast metabolism, eating over 5,000 calories a day, and complaining about it. So you just can't complain about it, and you just got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
John, thanks again for coming on. I think this was a great episode, and for anyone looking to gain muscle size, I think this is a must listen to, because this guy did it. He's 100% natural, and if he did it, we all can do it. And just listen to his advice, because I think it's sound, and it'll definitely take you there.
All right, Anthony. Thanks for having me on, man. It's great talking about training and nutrition with you.
Yeah, it was awesome. John, you're actually the first guest to come on twice.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, you're the first one. So hopefully we'll have you on again and maybe do a different topic, because it's cool to have a different kind of co-host. So Pete's not here to do the outro. I would ask you to do it, but you probably don't know it. So this is Pete. This is Anthony and John Hansen, New York Muscle Radio, and we're out.
Enjoyed this episode of New York Muscle Radio? Make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, New York Muscle Radio.